Hey y'all! Welcome back to Deconstructing Damsels. It is now 2021 in the middle of January, and I'm back from having a couple days break, except not really, which I will explain at the end of this episode. But for now, I want to thank my patrons, Dee Dee, well, let's just say the Elm sisters all together because they both are amazingly supportive, Kerry, Marlene, and Kelly. Because you guys have been awesome. And I want to say thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, so this year the money actually helped in a really big way because I was able to buy a big box of historical books, and they were like 15 euros, which was relatively expensive, but it's okay because it means I'll have a lot of material I can read for a while. So when I'm using my Kindle U and I can, have more for my patrons to hear, it just kind of gives me a little bit more chance to kind of move around a bit. Speaking of reading, I am going to be on the historical romance readathon from January 16th until the 21st. That's the hashtag HR readathon. And it's done by Jessica at Peace Love Books XO, Remarkably Lisa, and Lacey Book Lovers. I'm going to enjoy it because I have never done a readathon before, and I think this will be very fun, and it's historical romance, and my book should be here by then. So I'm going to have a wide variety. I've got a whole bunch of things set up, and I will talk about that later. Also, the historical box. Actually, I decided I'm going to do an unboxing, hauling. I don't know really how to put it because here in Germany it's a little bit harder to get, historical romance. I can't just go to the thrift store and pick up 30 books at a time and, have a whole selection. Here it's kind of like hit or miss. So some of them didn't look like they were, but I'll go through those, and I think I'm actually going to do a live with that on Instagram, which is at Damsels Podcast. Same with Twitter and Facebook. Also, Patreon is patreon.com/Damsels Podcast because I'm nothing if not consistent. So I wanted to give you guys a heads up about that. Also, this month is I've been calling it themeless. We're just going to call it random. Okay? We're just going to go with random. And then next month in February, it's going to be passion. So I'm going to do an erotic romance, and I'm going to do a revenge romance. And I think it's a very interesting one, a way of doing it. I am hoping to, kind of use this time to diversify what we read and what we talk about on here, and, having a whole bunch of new guests because, bless the romance community, everyone has stepped up, and I've got so many episodes that I can, release now that I can kind of take a break and enjoy reading, which is something I haven't really done in a while because I've been trying to stay pressure to do the podcast, and I know, don't feel like that, and you're totally right, but it's a perfection thing for me. I don't like to feel like I'm doing something wrong by letting people down. So I'm really proud of that. I've also got an idea. So I said in April that I would like to do the Ever After movie, and I have a whole list of people that I have to contact about that, and we're going to see how many I can get together and what we can do. I'm thinking of maybe doing one Discord server just for this project because I don't think Zoom will have enough, and with as many people as we're going to have, it's going to be a kind of a long one. So I want to make sure that everyone can hear it and we can have our discussions and we can talk about what we want. So that's cool. I'm working on it. I promise you guys. I've been saying it for 6 months, but I promise you I'm still working on where I need to go with that. Now on to what's happening on to this actual episode, since housekeeping is almost done. Again, there's something at the end of the episode I'm going to leave there. I want you guys to listen because it's a secret project I've been putting together for about a week, and I think it should be really fun. But I kind of did a boo-boo with this. We, meaning myself and guest Kristin, at the Edifying Word, did a review of More Than We Bargained For. And it's by Fiona West, who follows me on Twitter, which is a little bit strange for me. Usually I don't do that, but I thought it was really cool and it was fun, and I kind of like to change things up and read different things. And so I was like, cool. It's not a second chance romance, but it's a first chance romance. But it's a second chance, I think, for, the damsel in this case. Starla has to start over, and I like those kind of stories. So we'll be talking about that. But again, I forgot to edit this in when we were talking because we kind of went in the middle of the episode and started talking. Because sometimes I forget to hit the on button, a lot. Sorry. But what we're going to be doing is we will be discussing this in just a moment. And I definitely want to say thank you so much for coming on, Kristin. She's never done a podcast before, so it meant a lot. And I'm glad we could talk about a book that she really, really liked. So now you guys can listen. Enjoy Kristin and I discussing more than we bargained for. I'm saying I haven't had sleep in about 15 hours, so I'm a little loopier than normal. But thankfully not in the episode, because I was actually sleeping during that day. Okay, guys, enjoy. The HEA at this point in my life, like, you know, there's no major issues or cause of crying in the middle of somewhere. But I mean, the other book was well written. It was just not what I was expecting. When
You're
I was
just not in a place
book.
to read that right now.
Exactly, especially not at Christmas. And it was a Christmas book.
Yeah.
I was like, that's, you know what? You could have put that in January, November. That would have been fine. But that's a lot of emotional leverage. And so it was really nice to see with like Starla and Sawyer. It was nice to see not just a happy ending, but, you know, a functioning family. Not always possible.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it wasn't at first. She didn't have a functioning family.
Oh, yeah, no. No, I would definitely say her first husband was not functioning in any way, shape, or form. To say the least.
Yeah.
I mean, like...
So I read all the books in the series. All the Timber Falls books. Have you read them?
No, I've only read this one. This is my first Fiona West I'd read.
In my personal opinion, this one's the best. My mom reads all the romances that I copy edit. And not the other genres, but if it's a romance, she likes to see my name in the back of the book, you know, like... She'll like screenshot it and send it to me, and I'll be like, Mom, I know.
but the point is like she's proud, and it's a genre she likes, so let's run with this. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So I mean, she didn't think this one was as good as the previous one, but to me, this one is my favorite, and I don't know if that's because I love Starla so much, and how she's so real. Like, she's damaged, and she knows it, and the people around her know it, and they love her.
And she doesn't hide from it.
Right. Yeah. You see her break. And I cried when I got to that point, and I was like, that was awesome. Like, I just... You know, it's also interesting to me, like, you don't see a lot of romances that feature people with kids. I was going to say older heroines, but she's not older, because she's the age I was when I had my first child.
So she's like, yeah.
Because she was so young when she had Aiden.
Yep.
But you don't see... And I'm not in any... I know it's going to sound funny. Like, I'm very happily married. Have been for 14 years. Like, I'm not thinking in any way that I'm going to have a romance with children. But you don't see it often. And you don't see... in a book, like, someone be so wholeheartedly accepted with their children, and especially pregnant by another person.
And to add to that, also, like, with the like with Aiden, he's damaged too. Like, this is all left something on him. And with Starla not really talking about it, I think it's real in that way too, because there's like... you don't know how to adjust to things when you're, you know, young. Like, you don't understand what's going on. You only know what you think should be going on. And it's not the way it's supposed to be. And I appreciated the fact that, you know, the like, as the oldest, he kind of has to adjust differently.
Yeah, I just randomly opened up, I have the paperback, I just randomly opened it up to the page where she tells him that she's pregnant. He's like, why are you sleeping all the time? Are you sick? And she's like, oh, you know, have we talked about where babies come from? And he's like, oh, gross, Mom, come on. Yeah. And she's like, I'm pregnant. And then he storms out, slams the door, and says, who's going to take care of us? And like, that was so powerful coming from a child made you stop and think, like, how to see that from the kid's perspective too.
Yeah. And I mean, the damage is not just in like the Charlie was, you know, his infidelity and breaking of the family. It's also in the lack of things being said, right? Because like God bless it, I don't always like Reddit, but there is one thing that Reddit says a lot, and it's, whenever something traumatic happens to a family, always put your kids in a way that they can find someone to talk to. Whether that's like a therapist, you know, someone from your church, someone from their school, like
Right.
just find someone they can trust so they can open up and so you can know what they're going through. Get some feedback and an adult an adult can kind of like interpret it for you so you can know what's going on.
Right. And you don't start to see Aiden heal at all
Mm-mm.
until he starts talking to Sawyer. Like
Yeah,
spending time outside with him with his tools and his motorcycles and stuff.
it's something to focus on, right? Like it's not is I've known a lot of people that come from broken homes, myself being one of them. But I've known a lot of people that come from broken homes and not addressing it in a way that is open is very damaging many years down the line. So, it's nice that, Aiden can have someone to talk to and find some way of finding that bond he doesn't have right now because like he's so close with his dad, but his dad doesn't live with him. There's no one there that can help him at,
Well, and his dad is the
he
cause of it. So it's
right.
another complicated part. Like he can't, what's he supposed to do? Be like, Dad, why'd you do that?
Exactly.
Which would
And
actually be really healthy to have that conversation, probably.
yeah, it really would. Like that, I
But
was kind of hoping there was going to be some more of those conversations, honestly, in it because I was rooting for the kids so hard. I felt for them so badly because not only did their lives like get turned upside down, but now it's even more twisted from having a, a younger sibling that they weren't even consulted on. Like they weren't able to be like, okay, what's going on with this, mom, dad? We need to communicate more.
right.
And,
Yeah. I mean, she kind of just drops it on him because she has to.
mm-hmm. She's getting to a place where she can't not. I think being from a child from like divorced parents, and some drama, I get it. I get where Aiden's coming from so very well.
It's so interesting because I never thought about it from that perspective. I was more like identifying with Starla, not,
Yeah.
which every time I say that, I feel like I have to qualify that, like, I have a wonderful husband. He's always been faithful. I'm not like, I don't identify with her in that sense, but I guess as much as she tries so hard to do what's right for her kids, and she still screws it up.
Yeah.
And like,
and
that as a mother, I'm like, I try so hard to do what's right for my kids. But like, I don't always know what that is. And I have my own baggage and things that I carry with me that come out or prevent me from having those conversations. Like she should have had a conversation with her son.
mm-hmm.
After she left him at the library, she should have talked to him about that.
Yeah. Because there was a lot that needed to be said that was not being said, and that's something that like whether she realizes it or not, it's going to be in his head for the rest of his life. Like you
Yeah.
there's a level of abandonment that comes with that because his father has abandoned him by not being there. His mother has moved that abandonment by leaving his father. And now, it's just like you have to have these conversations, and I get it because like when you're in the moment, you can't always think about it, but you have to go back and backtrack.
That's so interesting again, because I remember having a conversation on Twitter, hearing that some like early reviewers of the book thought that scene was like made her irredeemable. And to me, it doesn't. Because I think she stopped herself before she said, I didn't plan you.
Yeah.
Like she didn't go all the way. She kind of like had the presence of mind in the moment to realize whoa, I don't want to do that to him, while still going a little bit too far. To me, that was like her moment, or like her darkest moment. It showed us how broken Starla really was.
I can see the irredeemable side of that deeply. Again, I come from a world of brokenness, but
yeah.
I can say that it didn't irredeem her to me, but it put a mark on Starla for that. Not because of the fact that she had that reaction, but because she didn't follow up with a way of communicating with her child. You know, like if she had clearly said, like, you know, I did this wrong. I am so sorry. Do you remember that scene? Like, this is a really bad example, but do you remember that scene in Roseanne where she hits DJ? And they sit down at the coffee table and they have a conversation. She's like, okay, I did this wrong. I'm bad. You have to be punished for what you did, but you didn't deserve what you got out of me.
Right.
Like it wasn't your actions were not what caused this. It's other people, but I took it out on the wrong person, and that was not okay. And I think that's what maybe what the readers were looking for as well. That redemption in that moment of saying, okay, I messed up. Here's what I did wrong. We need to get you into counseling. We need to get you some way of feeling secure, because obviously you're not feeling it right now, and I'm failing on my job, and why are you not seeing that? Yeah. So I can see that, because I felt very similarly. I was like, she left her kid. No. Dirt. Put him in timeout, but go get him back. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
But I understand being so broken that you mentally can't. Everything is not right. Like, nothing is ever feels like it's going to be right again, because you've got all these things coming through on you, and it's too much. Yeah. And so something has to break, and unfortunately it was her relationship with her son in that moment.
Right.
When really I think she should have been breaking her relationship with her family. Her parents, for instance.
Yeah, her parents are ridiculous. Mm-hmm. I love when she stands up for herself outside of the church.
Oh yeah.
Like gets up on a rock and is like,
just says it all out loud.
Yeah.
Fiona in the book, it was set in the Pacific Northwest, but honestly, to me, it sounded more like, I grew up in Georgia, so I grew up in the state of, to clarify, it's not the country of.
Yeah.
I grew up in the state of, and, you know, it felt very similar to the smaller towns that I have around here, which makes sense because of Sawyer's background. It's a good, like, middle point, I think. But it just, you know, so when he would say things, I'd be like, oh no, this makes sense to me. This is my language, I got that. But it was very, like, it felt more like an East Coast than a West Coast in my mind. Because most West Coast, you know, you read them, they're like in Denver, or not West Coast, but Western. But you know, you see it more in like that, or maybe like I don't know, the mountains of like Washington or Oregon, in that area, you know, the plateau area. So it felt more southern to me in that way. Than another way. But
I don't know, maybe it's because I've read all the books in the series so far, so like I feel like I've spent an awful lot of time in Timber Falls.
that may actually be.
And I've seen, you know, the other, I guess I've read enough to make it feel more like
Western.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's easier now, like now I'm in California, so it feels closer. Yeah. I'm from the East Coast. I've only been in California for a year and a half.
Ooh.
And
big change.
Yeah. We came out here in June of 2019 for my husband's job. So half the time we've been here, we've been basically housebound.
Yes, because California has been very big on housebounding people.
Yeah. So, you know, my kids were in school for 9 months, and then we did distance learning, and then I pulled them out and just homeschooled because I hated distance learning. So it's been a whole up and down year. So I feel like I'm like, in a way, I like that it's West Coast because that's where I am now, and I feel so like in a foreign land.
Yeah. I'm
Like,
very familiar with that term
I
format.
like, I know. I almost feel like I'd be more comfortable overseas. Not that, I mean, I studied in Italy in college. Um, and then I did a little bit of travel, just like a week at a time, before kids.
Yeah.
But I haven't been out of the country. Gosh, I don't know, a long time. 10 years. Um,
The first time I went out of the country was when I moved. Well, I mean, I went when I was little. I went to Mexico, but like that didn't count because I was 8. But like as a grown up, this was my first time out of the U.S. I moved to a different country.
wow, that's big. That's bigger
Yeah.
than moving from Virginia to California.
I don't know, man. Virginia and California are very different.
They are. I was in Northern Virginia though, so we're like, right outside DC. They're like, it's like when I went to Southern Virginia, I'd be glad I had Virginia plates on my car. It'd be
Yeah.
like, okay, they don't know I don't belong here.
Yeah. No, I had a family member of sorts, Southern, so weird connections, and they lived in Chesapeake, and then they lived in the mountains, and vastly different.
Yeah.
I mean, I was born and raised in Metro Atlanta, so also
Okay.
vastly different. So I get it.
Yeah.
If you go north or you go south, it's completely different. You can't see my face, but I just made the big wide-eyed look. Um,
I think it's really interesting that you felt like Sawyer was written well as being from Georgia.
yeah, I mean, like he like read like when I was reading him, I read him as somewhere from being like, there's a place. Okay, so there's places outside of Atlanta that are within Atlanta, and there's like Conyers and Covington. Conyers is mostly known for the musician Erica Jane and other issues, but it felt more like he was from there. And I say that because it's maybe like 40 minutes outside of Atlanta, but it's rural.
Okay.
Or, if you were to go like if you go up north from Atlanta, maybe about an hour and a half, you're almost in Tennessee. So between an hour and a half and 2 hours, you're at the Tennessee border. And so it felt like he was in those kind of like that circle of Georgia. Um, it's a little bit further. Like Conyers is a little bit further, but it's on the way. Like you go through it a lot when you go through to go to like South Carolina and stuff like that to get on the highways and stuff.
Okay.
So it felt like that.
So, what did you think about when Starla like up and moved to Arizona?
I understood that completely. To me, that was like I understood. I wish we'd seen more of that, of her being in Arizona. I wanted to see more of that, and that's because, hey, obviously I just did that. Well, but further, but I got it because she needed her independence, and she needed to see where her value was without having a guy around. Because I mean, she'd had Charlie since high school, and then she had Sawyer, but she'd never seen what she could do on her own.
Yeah.
And so to me, that felt so completely in character for that. Because, do you remember the show, Christie?
No.
It had Kelly Martin in it. So it was set in like the Appalachian Mountains of like 1912 or something. But I mention it because Tess Harper played a character named Fairlight. And so for some reason in my head, I kept seeing like Fairlight and Starla together. And by that, I mean Fairlight was a very, she was like someone that was very much in charge of her own way. I mean, it was Christian, so there was that element, but she was in her own way. And, she was strong and she was powerful, but she also had her moments of weakness. And I for some reason, I kept seeing Tess Harper as that. Tess Harper is an actress her first movie was with Robert Duvall. I can't remember the name of it. But, in my head, I was just seeing this. And so I could see her wanting to move, wanting to put down that independence and needing to say, okay, I can do this. I don't have to do this, but I can do this. And I
Yeah.
don't think she'd ever been given that opportunity because she'd been, married to Charlie and he was in charge of so much. I mean, she was a librarian and she did that, but like, a lot of their social like equity, I guess, went through him,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because like
Yeah.
hers was not because she was scandal ridden because she got pregnant. So
It's
I
so funny.
understood.
Like I have these dreams sometimes that like, and it's weird because it's always like me. I met my husband in college, our first year of college, and we got married right after we graduated, and we didn't have kids for another 5 years. So like I graduated college, and then I got married, and I did like everything in the right order, right? And in my dreams, it's all mixed up. We're like back in college, but we're married, but we can't live together, but I have a baby. And because I have the baby, I keep failing my classes and like all this, it like is so mixed up. But like it's like I've had dreams, not in real life, but like dreams of being, Starla walking across the stage at graduation, pregnant. And like feeling that, and I don't know why, but I feel like Starla could be, there are so many people in the world who could be her.
Yes, there are a lot of women that got married young, fresh out of, high school. They they don't always get to find their way before a way has already been put in their path,
Right.
right? Like they don't get to explore what they want to do. It's always what someone else wants to do. And I think that's what I got from a lot from her early, not later, but like in her early parts of it with, talking about Charlie, like that Valentine's Day that he brings their daughter home, and you see her missing that nostalgia, but also realizing it can't be anything more than this one night because everything is irrevocably broken, not only in her life but also in her dreams, because this is not what she wanted.
Right.
They had problems, but but she felt like they could get through them, right? And then he broke everything, and then wanted her back because she finally stood up and said that's enough. Which great for feeling validation on being awesome, but not
Right.
great when you're trying to, raise two kids, figure out how to pay your rent, you know, be pregnant, be in a small town.
Right.
It's a lot to force her into. And I think that that's something that a lot of women can understand really well.
Yeah, I think so. And I think like, I mean, how many girls are there like Starla who just, luckily didn't get pregnant and got to go on and live their lives? And
Right.
that's what happened to her. And then she made all those decisions for her children. Like, she stayed in her marriage for the longest time. She got married because of her son. She stayed in
Right.
her marriage because of her son and her daughter. And then ultimately left her marriage for her, but also for the kids. Like, I feel like it was being with Aiden, walking in, that
Mhm.
really set it over the edge. Because, she
Yeah.
talks about finding things in her bed before, like she knew. But it was like, once it was so clearly out in front of her kids.
There was nothing else that could happen but to leave,
Right.
because you don't want to raise kids where they feel like A, it's okay, but B, that like someone else's whims and their selfishness is something you have to hold on to. And especially as a mother with a daughter, most especially with a daughter.
Yeah. Like, she showed her daughter that you don't let a man treat you like that.
Exactly.
But I feel like for Starla, like, I think so much of what she does is motivated by what's best for her children until she gets to that point where she leaves Aiden at the library and she moves to Arizona, even though they don't want her to. They don't want to.
Right.
Um, and she needed that. She needed to become her own person.
Mhm. And to find a way of knowing where and how she can survive if something happens. Like cuz like we we're often put through trials after we've already been through a trial. That's what I always call it. Like, I've gone through a lot of crap in my life, to put it lightly, but it works. Like I learned something from it, and then I'm like, okay, great. And then there's yet another thing that sets me back. And so you have to find a way to re-find yourself in order to be strong. And she had to move. Like she physically had to remove herself from the situation to find someone that could help her, and that was herself, not Sawyer, you know, not her friends. It had to be her
Mm-hmm.
because she'd never had that ability on her own. The decisions had already been made for her once she got pregnant and had Aiden. Like she could have been a single mom, but
Yeah, but at
she
that
wouldn't have
point
been
she
happy
was
that way.
no,
She would
and
have been
she
like
was
19.
and
Yeah.
she was head over heels for Charlie at that point still
Mhm.
too. So
She, you know, first loves can be damaging sometimes
yep.
to your self-esteem. They're not always like sometimes they turn out great. Sometimes like you get the, young adult romance, but you don't often do.
Right.
So it's nice to show that you can be hurt and damaged and have that kind of like happiness veil come off and still be able to move on and not let it continuously hurt you,
Yeah.
which I think I appreciate that, and that's why I read a lot of romance, honestly. It's just because I need that. I need that optimism, but it's like a realistic optimism, right? It's not like, head in the clouds. It's okay, we can do this. Here's how we do this. A, B, C, D,
Yes.
right? Where, instead of the like I've been watching a lot of Hallmark Christmas movies.
Okay.
I love them more than life itself sometimes because it's very like relaxing to me. It's kind of like reading a romance. I know the beats, I know how things are gonna go. I can follow along. And so we've been watching it, and we just recorded an episode for Cross Country Christmas, which has got Rachel Lee Cook in it.
Okay.
And it's interesting because you're watching her, the character Lena, you're watching her kind of be herself and be optimistic and go forward, but you also see her be like, okay, I can't fix this no matter how much I try, so I just have to like stand back and find a way to help without being too much, right? And I think that sometimes that's what like Starla needed that. She needed someone that was going to be like, okay, I can't fix it for you because that takes away so much of her agency that she was missing so much from that marriage
Yeah.
and that life that she had. But she needed someone that would be standing there, be like, okay, you call me, I need you. You call me, I'm there. You
Yeah.
back off, cool. So like let me know what you need, and I think that was hard for her too to be open and vulnerable in that because she'd gotten into the complacency of not necessarily opening up. And I say complacency because after a while it does become like this thing that you don't want to rock the boat, you don't want to say anything to your friends and family, you don't want to go into all that. Because then you have to start answering questions and then it starts to hurt you when you have to look into yourself. So it's kind of like this complacency of okay, I'm not going to move that.
Yeah.
It stays over there, I stay over here. We just keep pushing it further away. Or as I call it, I think it was what was her name? Faith Hunter has a book series under another name. I cannot remember what it's under, but and she has a series where she's got some like 1980s, 1990s like gothic horror in it, and the one of the characters that is having a lot of issues, she says she's got a hat box and she puts it in her head, like in her mind, and so she just keeps putting the things in that hurt. And
Mm.
so after a while, it grows and gets bigger and bigger, and she just pushes it further in the shelf in her mind. And I think that that's kind of what Starla had to do, right? Like you have to push it away. Like, nope, can't discuss it, can't talk about it, don't have time for it, don't have the energy for it, don't have the resources for it. So, but then she couldn't do that anymore, and that completely set her apart. Like her whole world was just like different in that one moment
Yeah.
because the kids were exposed. And that's, I will say, I wish that she had discussed that with Aiden too. Like what he saw. That open communication of what did you see? Because I think
Yeah.
that would have, I think that would have bridged that gap that was broken when she left him as well. It's like, okay, do you know why things are going? I'm not gonna give you the full ride because you're like 9, but like, what do you think happened? How
Right.
can I help you understand what's going on? You know, and it's, I think that was one thing that I really wish they'd been a little bit more focused on because I think it was important to the
I,
plot line. I thought.
yeah. Okay. See, I don't know that I would have said. I think that if, these were real people in real life, that would be what you would ultimately want her to do. I don't know that she had the capability to do that.
I don't think she did. I just think that it was. I don't think she necessarily had to have like the long conversation, but I think she needed to acknowledge it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like you don't have to acknowledge it was like a 35-minute conversation, but be like, hey, do it over like a couple of months. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
slowly open it up so that way
Right. Or have
their son.
some other character say to her, hey, Starla, have you talked to Aiden about this?
Exactly. Like, just something to kind of be like, hey, you realize he's acting out because he's confused and hurt and worried and his whole world is blown apart, right? Like, you need to have like conversations, right? Like, go to the ice cream shop with him one day after. Like,
Right.
I can watch, I can watch the kids. You take your son and we go have a conversation. So that way, there's just like, I felt bad because I felt like in some ways Aiden lost both his parents at one time in different ways. Because his mom had stopped being this kind of mom he knew in that moment, and his dad was just, gone, was removed from the everyday monotony of life. And
Right.
so I think that at 9 years old that can be really confusing and frustrating. And I wanted to see it because I liked him with both Starla and Sawyer. I liked him as like I usually don't always like kids because kids can be precocious too often, and it
Uh-huh.
felt like Aiden wasn't. And so I wanted him to have that because I felt like it would be really good to have him have that closure because it would close out that entire chapter of their past before moving on to the future. Because like I said, I liked it and I liked that like, I liked that he and Sawyer had their own communication tools because like
Yeah.
my stepdad and I have got completely different communication tools that my dad and I do. Completely different topics in completely different ways. And I wanted to see that so it could kind of like give Aiden back his agency as well a little bit. Like his agency to be who he was versus who he felt like he had to be. Because like I think he felt like he had to be the man of the house because suddenly the man wasn't there.
Right.
At 9 years old, how are you going to be the man of the house?
Right. It's so interesting what our own lived experiences bring to how we interpret different characters because I didn't see any of that with Aiden. Like I just didn't give it that much thought. I have a 9-year-old daughter, this is a 9-year-old boy, like it was more like I lived as Starla in the book.
Yeah.
Like everything I saw was through her eyes, and what you're bringing up about Aiden makes me think like, wow, how would I see things like as through my child's eyes? That even when I think I'm doing the right thing, like how is that perceived? And what responsibility is that child taking on to themselves?
I will say, as like children of divorced parents, we often take on more responsibility than we should because we feel like we have to. And especially like if it's something like a major event, like it's not like mom and dad just divorced because they didn't like the color green. I understand like being a divorced parent, and I understand being not being a divorced parent, but being a divorced kid of parents, I should say. And I
Right.
can understand like it's really hard as a mom. I mean, especially like now, 200 years ago, 2,000 years ago, single moms have got really hard lives. Um, but yeah, looking at it, I guess I understood Aiden a lot because I saw bits of all the kids that I knew besides myself.
Yeah.
So I could understand where he was coming from. And I think that's what kind of like,
You don't feel like he got what he needed.
right, I feel like he was missing that. I think he was missing that little bit of closure. So, because, I mean, he was getting a whole new life, and that was an amazing thing for him. That's what he needed. He needed to have a different life. And, like, he was down for Sawyer, and he liked the responsibility, but I think that the conversation should have been had for his benefit because I think it would have helped facilitate his mental his mental statement of being like, he's got like there's 10 years difference between him and his youngest sibling now,
Mm-hmm.
basically. And 10 years is a lot.
Yeah.
Like, it's a huge difference in not just generational because depending on when you're born, sometimes it can be an entire generation, but also like there are things that you're not going to know or understand, and it's easier if you have that ability in some ways because like so my youngest sibling is my stepbrother, and we're 8.5 years apart. And I know that there are things that like when he was younger he would talk about and I would not understand.
Yeah,
So if
my youngest brother is 8.5 years younger than me. I'm the oldest of five, and he's the youngest. So they're, three more in the middle. But it's like we had totally different lives.
exactly, and it's the same thing because like he is the youngest out of all of us, because my stepfather has two daughters and I have an older brother. So again, I'm almost 40. So, that's a huge difference in time. And so it's very important to note that like I think that giving him that time now would have been helpful because he knows he's not going to get the time with having two younger siblings now. One was enough of taking time away.
Mm-hmm.
Two, and one of them being a baby when you're 10 is huge. When you're trying to like um redefine your life in some way because like not like redefine it like you're like 35, but redefine it when you're 10 is still huge because 10 years is like when you're 10 years old, that's you're starting to transition from kid to preteen and teen, and there's a lot of different things going on in your mind. But I did appreciate the fact that Charlie like you know let go of some things and handled making sure Aiden was solid. And I appreciated that because I think that's what he needed from the beginning. He needed to know it wasn't his fault. It wasn't his like even if he didn't see what she thought he saw,
Uh-huh.
there's still that feeling of okay, well, I was like with my mom when we left. No
Right.
one's explaining to me
I
what's
don't know
going
exactly
on.
what's going on, but it was clearly bad enough to make Mom really upset.
Exactly. I mean, like mom left dad, so obviously this was huge. And I was there with her, and I don't know, and so there's it's something I really wanted to see more of. I think and like I think I wanted to see it too because I wanted to see it help shape and see how Charlie and Sawyer were both going to shape Aiden. Like, not that we're going to see it because it's like many years in the future, but you know what I mean.
Right.
Like we're influenced by the people around us. So I wanted to see how I wanted to give him that little bit of closure so he could be free to be who he wanted to be. Because like you know it's going to be also difficult because with Sawyer's MS, as it progresses, he's going to also be somewhat responsible in helping take care of Sawyer. And I don't mean that like, Sawyer's gonna need like a person all the time, like a caretaker, but just
Sure.
there are situations where you're gonna have to be the person to, go get the clothes or, go call 911 or, it's a change in.
Well, I mean, even that, your whole life just adapts. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, so um, my mother-in-law has MS. And when I first met my husband, we were freshmen in college, we were 18, 19. And he's the oldest, so his younger siblings all still lived at home. Um, and there are definitely just like ways that their life was different.
Mm-hmm.
Even simple stuff like, this is going to sound funny, but like she had an unusual MS symptom where she was always cold. Usually people with MS are hot. Hers was the reverse. So their house was like 77 degrees all the time. And it's just a life adaptation. Like they all knew. Like you go home from school and you change back into shorts. Like it doesn't matter what time of year it is. Like you're going to sweat in the house. But like she had to have it that way. And so you're right in that sense. Like things, Aiden's life, there will be things to pay attention to that will be different if Sawyer didn't have MS.
Yeah. I think, like, I don't have MS, but I have diabetes, type 1. I clarify that because everyone thinks I have type 2, and no, I wish I did. I have type 1, which is it's an autoimmune disease. And so there are things that affect me every day. And I know that if I do end up having a child, that at some point, when I get older, that's going to affect my child. Because, when I'm 75, I'm probably going to have a lot of health issues that say someone else's, mom is not going to have at that age. And so I have to be aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to be aware of the fact that, like, it's going to be a high risk pregnancy, right? So I probably will only have one child just for the sake of all the health issues that can come with it being a diabetic. And so you think about it and you're like, okay, do I want to put this pressure and all this on a child?
Well, and that's exactly what
Sawyer...
Not
a child, but yeah.
Sawyer didn't. Yeah. I mean, that was his whole thing, right? He was like, don't... Like, nobody can treat me like an invalid. Like, back off, I'm fine. Except, I'm damaged goods, so don't love me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why would you sign on for this?
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's another thing that's just, like, realistic. Like, we all have that kind of stuff. Like, I have mental health struggles. Do I like the impact that has on my children? No. But I still wouldn't, I don't know. I'm still lovable, right? Like, right. I'm still worthy of my children's love. I can still mother them. And I'm mostly fine right now, but there are adaptations to my life that I have to make. Like, I can't take my kids to Disney World. I had to leave Disney World last year because anxiety, like too many people, too much going on. Like, I can't. And they don't understand that, like, why can't mom come on the rides with us? Why won't mom do this? Why did mom leave?
Yeah.
Like, because mom was about to have a panic attack. Like, and leaving just was the right thing. And I have, thankfully, a spouse who could see that. He looked at me, he's like, you're leaving, you're going home. Yeah. I'm going to take you home. And then his dad was like, I think your kids will do better if you stay here. I'll take her. And he did. Yeah. And it was great. Like, I was fine as soon as I left. Mm-hmm. And so, like, my husband's basically like, nope, you may not come again.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay.
You're like, fine with me.
That's fine. Like
you go enjoy all the crowds. I'll stay here and read my book.
Exactly.
We'll be fine.
But that's the thing. Like, as humans, we all have flaws. And that's what I loved so much, I think, about More Than We Bargained For, is that Sawyer and Starla are both flawed. They're both damaged. They both have their own things. Like, for Sawyer, it's a health thing and all the consequences of that for him. Mm. And for Starla, it wasn't her health, but it's other stuff. And, like, they both have... I love seeing that they support each other.
Yeah. I did too, because, like, well, you mentioned that, and, like, mentioning my type 1, I have a lot of issues with, my sugars can go up and down, up and down, up and down. Like, when I say up and down, like, it can go from, like, 280, it should be around 140. It can go from 280 randomly in the morning to me taking my medicine and it hitting, like, 50. Not because I overtook it, just because my hormones shift in that, 20 minutes time. you suddenly can't, like, your world becomes different, right? And so my husband's had to call the EMTs for me to make sure I didn't die. Like, I was non-responsive to the EMTs for half an hour when they gave me like
My
the
goodness.
dextrose in my system. So I get it. Like, I understood Sawyer in that moment, because I get it, because I'm like, I've told him, I'm like, why are you with me? Why are you here? Why do you love me this much to risk everything taking care of me if something happens? And he's like, because I love you.
You're gonna make me cry. But I felt the same thing. Like, I've had these. It's mental health, but like, I've had such dark times, and my husband has loved me and supported me through it, and I'm just like, why? Like,
Right.
why? And he's like, well, I love you. And I'm like, I know, but sometimes I can't understand.
Like, can you explain
Because,
it to me in words that make sense to me? Because I
like,
don't get it.
because you know we're just going to deal with this crap for the rest of our lives, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's never going to stop. And I know now, having been so low so many times, that I can come back from it. So I don't have that same, like, depth of despair, but
Yeah.
it's so much work
Oh, yeah.
and effort. And for all of us.
Oh, yeah. I I understand that too, because I will flat out say there was a point where I was suicidal. Like, I was looking up how to kill myself. And I mentioned this because not even my love for my then fiance, now husband, could keep me here. But he still kept loving me. He understood. When I had my miscarriage, it was absolutely, I could feel myself spiraling. Like, I noticed the signs. I know it was coming
Mm-hmm.
because my depression hits high enough. And when you add depression, ADHD, and anxiety all together, it's a maelstrom. And so he was like, okay, we got to go get a dog. So we got me a dog. Because he was like, because he knew that, like, when I was living where I was at the time when I was suicidal, that taking care of the cats was the only thing that kept me alive. Because I knew that no one else would take care of them as well as I was. That was my tether. And
My
he was
tether
like,
was that I
okay,
was pregnant and I couldn't figure out how she would live if I didn't,
see,
But like, my husband sat with me in the emergency room. And when they were like, you don't need to be admitted, he advocated for me. He was like, no, you have to do something for her. And we got me into a partial program where I went all day for a bunch of days, for a bunch of weeks. And then I got on bed rest and I had to stop doing that and whatever. But the whole long story. But like, but I get that. You have to have, and he's gone, we were already married, but like, he's gone through that with me.
mm-hmm.
And it's the same thing. You see the signs and he'll be like, okay, we have to change something. That
Mm-hmm.
this week was, he's gotten up for the past 4 nights with our toddler son, because I woke up a couple days ago and I was like, I'm okay right now, but remember that PPD, lack of sleep thing? Like, I haven't slept more than 3 hours in a row in over a week, and I'm gonna break.
Mm. Because your body can't,
I can't.
you can't
Like,
do it.
my
Yeah.
body can physically get up and keep going, but my brain, like, short
Mm-hmm.
circuits. It's done. And
The
then,
the
and
movements are
so
automatic. Yeah.
he's done that for the past 4 nights for me. And like, that's just, I mean, some people would say, and I would agree, like, that's what a marriage is. And that's, you commit to loving each other by doing what you need to do for each other. Um, but that in real life, that's not what everybody has.
Exactly. And a lot of people don't, I mean, even the people that are married do not always have advocates for their partners. Like, I will advocate for my husband until the day I die. Like, I was in my 30s when we met. We met online. We met on OkCupid. Um, but we've, been together for 7 years now, and so a little over seven, like 7.5 years, somewhere around there. And being with him, advocating for him, and him advocating for me is, it's a feeling of safety that you
Yes.
don't always expect when you have so many issues that, like, I can call myself damaged because I think everybody is in some way. Something in somewhere has damaged somebody, right?
Right.
But my damagedness isn't a stopper for him. It's an okay, well, we'll adapt. Because like there are days where I wake up where I can't move. I don't know why. There's been no answers for it, but like it's just like move, like I can't even go out and walk the dog because like moving my body, like this morning I was so sore I couldn't move. Um, and so I'm like, okay, I can't walk the dog. So he comes back directly from work because he works early mornings. He'll come home directly. He'll have gone to the grocery store, done all this stuff, bringing, on his bicycle because we don't have a car. And I can't drive here, so we don't have a car.
Okay.
And so, he's been on the bicycle at, 10 o'clock in the morning. He's been working. He's gone to the grocery store. He comes back and he still gets up and takes the dog out and still makes me breakfast when I feel like I should be doing that since I'm at home, right? Like that's part of a partnership is separating the jobs, right? Like okay, so you're going out, so I should be the one doing the one, but I can't.
It's
And
so
so he's like,
funny. So we had that
okay, you do
conversation
it.
yesterday. I was like, Christmas dinner is going to be ruined and it's my job. And he was like, why is it your job? And I was like, it just is.
Because
He's
you're
like,
because
but it,
yeah.
but it doesn't have to be. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
Like, I should know this after 14 years of marriage, but like, I'm sorry, it's not my responsibility.
Yeah.
And like, I cooked the rest of dinner, and then I kind of looked at it. I was like, everything's ready, but I didn't make a vegetable. And he's like, we have leftover salad, don't we? That's good enough. It's good enough. You did like, it's wonderful. And I feel like I think I had a hard time with romance for a while because I feel like romance is only good when you see that authentic love.
Yeah.
And that is something that I love about Fiona West's books, is that her characters show that authentic love. Like, Sawyer takes care of Starla because he cares about her.
And like the book fairy.
And yeah, without an expectation
Mm-hmm.
or a need for something in return. He just shows his love. And
that's important.
It's amazing. And so, like, I love that when I read romance now, like, I don't read, like, and be like, oh, I wish I had that. I read and I'm like, I have that. It's awesome. Like,
exactly. No, I absolutely get that. That is so, like, yes. That is why I read romance, because I'm like, okay, like there are some subgenres and some things I can't read. Like I can't read the billionaire books. I can't read like, a lot of the insta love. I can't read those because like I don't connect with them. And
right.
That makes me different from some reviewers, but like I can't do like I could do let me phrase that. I can do fated mates because I understand fated mates. I don't understand instant love with characters you just met. But like you establish that someone's a werewolf or like a vampire, okay, cool. I have some tropes I can run with now. I know what to expect with these characters because there are some things that are just found throughout the genre. But like I have a lot of issues, but like I liked the fact that like Sawyer put in the time without saying anything because he had obviously been in love with her when she was still married to Charlie.
Yeah.
But he didn't say anything. And that's like it was like okay, I'm definitely into you, but I can't say that because you are like not only are you in a marriage and no matter how bad the marriage is, it's still you're married, but
Right.
also it's not my place.
Right.
And there was I'm talking about another movie we watched earlier, but there was a movie on TV1 that we saw on other methods here, because we don't have any of the holiday movies here.
Okay.
And there was one called Christmas Dilemma, and in it, like one of the characters is the husband's ex-girlfriend is there in the house because she's the aide to the grandma, and the aide is like the ex-girlfriend's like I'm in love with your husband, but I'm not touching anything. I'm not doing anything because that's not my place. My feelings are not his or your responsibility.
Right.
Basically, and that's what I appreciated about Sawyer because he was like, okay, this is not it.
Yeah.
Like you being in a relationship was you being in a relationship, not me.
Right.
And so I thought that was so helpful. And like doing the book fairy stuff and stuff like that, it was a way of making her feel special, even though it was killing her not to know who it was. But it was mattered, you
Right.
know, and it helped to like, because I got the feeling that the library was very small, so it wasn't like a huge funded library. So having those kind of help, it really helped kind of diversify the reading list of the area around too,
Hmm.
giving more people more options that they may not have found otherwise. And I thought that was really nice too by putting it in there.
Yeah.
Like the Terry Pratchett thing made me laugh again because my husband loves Terry Pratchett.
Yeah.
That's like his favorite author ever. Well, when I can't sleep, my husband reads me Terry Pratchett.
Oh.
Like he reads it aloud to me with the voices and everything. So to me, Terry Pratchett and I have got a profoundly deep relationship when I'd never heard of him before I met my husband. So it's things like that that kind of it's the knowledge of those around that mattered, and it's obvious that Sawyer cared about the people in the town, even though he didn't want to, because he knew some of these things. He's like, no, no, you should check out this. No,
Yeah.
no, next week, maybe check out that.
Right.
Like, maybe you should be paying attention to what's coming in the library, because a lot of it's really good. Some of it may be for certain people not named Starla if you take a closer look.
Right.
And I think that helped him because he was so moreless without being able to be a surgeon and being in medical field. And the whole thing with like he mentioned Emery and I laughed because if we have a future son, Emery is part of the name, but spelled differently because it's a diminutive of my husband's name. But
Okay.
also I wanted the name Emery because it was something that, history aside, the name means something to me because it's Atlanta based,
Right.
right? And so I get it. So when he mentioned Emory, I was like, oh yeah, that would suck to have to go through Emory and then not, because Emory is not cheap. It's a
No.
very expensive university to go to,
I remember
and
telling my parents I really wanted to go there. And we were down in Atlanta for something for my dad's work, and my mom drove me to the campus. We drove onto the campus. We were there for like 30 seconds. I was like, I don't like it. We're leaving. They were so mad. I was like, only like a 17-year-old would do that.
yes,
Like now I would be like, oh, yeah, it's nice. Let's walk around.
yeah, because then it's in like the best location too, like downtown Decatur. Great, like you can get everything there, including a bus transit system, which was not always possible when you live like 30 minutes north. Because I grew up on the outskirts of the town, so.
Okay.
But like we didn't have a bus transit system because not in my backyardism,
Hmm.
and so um, there was all that going on. But like I understood what he was saying and going through all that because like it's not easy to get into Emory and to be able to afford Emory and to you know um, come and to be able to like to lose that network as well, that alum network, because it's a huge network of pretty well-to-do people, which sounds bad, but just there are like opportunities that come with that.
Right.
It's like graduating from the college I did, I loved my college, but it didn't offer me the same things as say Emory would when it comes to maybe upping your what you do.
Hmm.
And it was nice to see him kind of be able to become that other position,
Yeah.
to doing what he loved without being able to do what he loved.
I
At
love too
least
that
while
that
he
came
could.
from Kyle,
Yeah.
which I think you would kind of get more if you'd read the like Kyle and Ainsley's story. Um, but like him as a character is not always the most aware of how other people feel. Um,
I actually, yeah, I gathered that from a couple of scenes in the book, actually. Does a really
um,
good job of establishing that.
yeah. So it was just really cool to have that be something that came from him too. Um,
Like, this is super important. See, even I noticed it. But, I mean, like, I will say one thing I wish that maybe, like, the grand announcement had maybe been a little bit further in the book. Because I think that I wanted to see them more as friends, too. I will say that because I was looking forward because like I like it when and second because I love second chance romances or first chance but second chance for one of the people.
Uh-huh.
I like it when you know I like to watch friendships build because I love, like I said before, I don't really care about sex scenes that much to the chagrin of most of the people that listen to my podcast. But um, I don't really care for, like, it's not that I don't care. I just like after the first one, I just it doesn't read to me for whatever reason. But I like to watch them build up and create an organic relationship. So I wish I'd seen a little bit more of that outside of the, you know, we're in love because I wanted to see her kind of build some of that independence while she was with Sawyer before she was with Sawyer. Does that make sense to
Uh-huh.
you?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I wanted to give her that opportunity to grow too, a little bit outside of it. But I like the fact that they are in love. I just wish I wish she'd been able to be a little bit more independent before. Outside of the Arizona thing, I mean, just like
Right.
within their confines of their relationship.
Oh, that's
Um,
interesting.
yeah, because I wanted to I like to cheer for women. Like that's the whole point of deconstructing damsels.
Right.
Literally, the name says it all. And so I wanted to cheer a little bit harder because I wanted to give her that opportunity to like stand out a little bit more because I love her and like I thought Starla was an amazingly not just strong but amazingly because that's such a ubiquitous term but like but so uh she was like solid, right? Like even her damage and she was solid. Like she knew what she had to do. She did it. Like she was very like competent. That's what I want.
Yeah.
Competent. I love competency. I have a whole thing called competency porn in my head. When a character is completely competent, I just get very excited. I love it. Like there's and I'm reading Olivia Dade's spoiler alert for to go over it in a couple days. I'm going to record an episode, and I'm just like competency porn. Anyway, moving on. But I enjoyed that, and so I liked her being competent. I think I want to see her be um competent within their relationship, with it not being like just flirtation. Like I want to see them be her confidence in her friendship as well. Because I love it when characters kind of like grow as a friendship, not just an HEA, but like
Hmm.
happy as in like they're friendly and they know what to do and stuff like that. It's always been my thing. I will ride or die for that particular. I guess it's a trope until the day I die. I'm not entirely sure what's a trope and what's not a trope in my genre anymore because well,
I don't know, sometimes I
words are
think maybe I'm
words.
just impatient. Like, kind of like,
Yeah.
and well, so there was an aspect of me being like, wow, man, you moved on really fast from that marriage. But,
Yeah.
but also kind of like, how do you not see what's going on? Come on already, catch on. Like,
Yeah. Like because like it was obvious that he was like massively in love with her and I mean she caught on fairly quick even before he came to that grand announcement and
yeah.
how he did it but like I wanted I also like I think it's also because I like to again this may be the hallmarky in me but which I'm not actually a hallmark anyway but I think it's part of the hallmark thing in me but like I like to watch it when people grow together in hard circumstances.
Uh huh.
They still grow together and still make their way. That could just be me though, because
You
I'm
know what I've wondered, which would be really. I kind of want to see a romance. It's totally different. I don't know what you'd even call it. I want to see like a story of people like in a marriage growing together past difficult circumstances.
oh yeah, there was one of those. Oh gosh, what was it? There was one that was like that not too long ago, but I cannot remember the life of me.
It's like I want to see my
Hey, listeners,
story.
yeah,
Like happily married, go through, married for 5 years, miscarriage, have a baby, postpartum depression, be like at the point where you're like, what is wrong with us? All we do is argue, and then be like, oh, she's really sick. Like,
yeah,
we need to get together and work on this together. and come out stronger the other end. And I don't know that you would call that a romance. Because
No,
it's
it
not.
actually is though, because like I know I cannot remember it. There was like this is gonna drive me crazy. I may have to get back to you because I know there is a romance that had like that kind of stuff happen. I just can't remember when it was. Um, faulty memory. But like, but I know there is one of that because I remember like reading it where people were like, it's not a second chance romance, but like they call it like, a rekindling of romance. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you're like your relationship is rekindling in its own way, because A happened, therefore B, C, and D happened, so you have to get to E, and you have to find that space to grow together. Because I mean, I'm with you. I like those kind of stories. I love those kind of stories. I like the I like being able to step into the shoes sometimes. Like I love me some historical romance, don't get
Yeah.
me wrong. I could read like Tessa Dare till I'm blue in the face, but I can't handle all the time. I can't handle the rom-com and the sometimes I need something that feels grounded. Something that can ground me to the book and go, "Oh, that I know that person.
Yes.
That's me.
Exactly.
I get it." Yeah, no, I absolutely understand that. It's a whole thing where just because you're in love in the beginning doesn't mean that you can't have hardships in between and have to refind it. And that doesn't mean that the HEA is gone either. It just means that you transform a bit. You
Right.
have
And I
to
think that's
the love has
essential
to
to
follow.
having, like, I want to be those people who are like 95 on the porch holding hands.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't think you get there without hardships.
Yeah,
And
you
I think
absolutely can't.
no, you can't. And it's a lifetime of romance. It's not like the let's meet, fall in love, but it's I don't know.
and we and we
Getting all
also don't
sentimental.
get well, and we also don't need it to be like the Notebook either.
Right.
Right? Like you can grow together without like dying at the end of every book.
Right.
Which is why Nicholas Sparks is never going to be written as a romance. Because he only knows how to kill people.
That's the
Um,
only book of his I've ever read, actually. I had to read it
I,
in a college class. My English
I,
class freshman year was about memory, so I had that assigned for
I
English.
never read it. Just watching the little bit of the books, because I've read some of his other books, and I was just like, no, you kill people way too often for me to be giving you my money. I'm tired of dead people. Give me something happy, please. Just a little bit. Just the one book, please. Just something happy.
Yeah, no, and what I want to see in a romance is like what I feel like I get from Fiona West, which is why I read all of her books, and I was like jumping up and down ecstatic when she hired me to copy edit for her. I was like, "What? No way. Like this is like a dream." Because these books to me are real people who have real problems but also have real love.
Yes.
And I
And
can't, that's what I'm looking for when I read a romance. I don't want just like the fluffy, like, so there's an appeal to like, oh, we're snowbound for Christmas and we fall in love and, but I'm like, I'm missing something.
yeah.
So I know you had mentioned that you're always curious about favorite podcasts or books. And
Yes.
I've been like agonizing over that because podcasts are really hard for me to listen to because I
Yeah.
have 4 kids and they're here all
Oh
the
yeah, I
time.
get it.
And so I'll like have something on, I'll listen to like 5 minutes while I'm washing dishes and then someone comes in and asks me something. And then like, an hour later I turn on the next 5 minutes and it's frustrating because
Yeah.
there are things I'd love to listen to more. But there was another book that I read this year that was like, to me, romance in a like a new way I hadn't seen done, and very like kind of like an older protagonist.
Oh, I love those.
Not super old. I say older, I'm thinking like me, like mid to late 30s, like
Yeah.
just
Same.
not like 20, because I
Yeah.
can't identify with those anymore.
Same. That's why I have some issues with historical romance sometimes, because I'm like, they're all 19.
Right.
Can we please get them to be like at least 25? Like,
Right.
just can we up them like a decade?
I'm
Yeah.
like, oh man, I've gotten old now. I want all my heroines to be in their 30s or 40s. Um, but so the author's name is Katrina Ariel.
Uh huh.
Wild Horse Heart is the book. She's now publishing under the name Leah Talon, but that one is still under Katrina Ariel, I think. And I read that this year. And it was just another one of those, like, life is rough. And this is not easy. And, like, crappy stuff is going to happen. But, like, real love is really possible.
I completely understand that. If like,
So,
in my podcast, I talk about that. Like, it's like you want to be able to walk into the story and understand where you're going. It doesn't have to be your life, but you want to find some way to connect with that that's
right.
always supposed to be like you. You know what I mean? Like whether that's
Right.
the like you know whether that's like the heroine, the love interest, the hero, like whatever the side character, whatever you want to fit in that world, and you want to be able to like feel like you belong there. And I get that because like it makes you remember things and it makes you feel things, and that like we're recording this right after Christmas, but this is going live in January. And that was the whole point of asking for those audio requests about what books really made people so interested. Like in 2020, whether it was published in 2020 didn't matter, but like what made your life better. And I did that at the end of the year because I wanted to have that look, not everything sucks about 2020, right?
Right.
Like there are moments of joy, and there are books that romance books that bring you that moment of oh, I can be there, I can feel that. It connects, and I think that's really important.
Yeah. And that one, I think it was the personal growth of the heroine of that book. Like, with or without the romance. And it sounds funny because we're talking about romances, but like, the romance helps her
Yeah.
through to achieve that personal growth. But she does that growth you're talking about. You wanted to see more of with Starla, that like independence. And it also deals a little bit with like body insecurity. That
Which
is
is big
some,
for a lot of romance readers.
yeah, but it is a big deal. Like, I met my husband when I was 18. I looked a whole lot different than I do at 36.
You
So
no, but I get
it's
it. Like
it's
you look and feel different because you've gone through so much stuff that it doesn't. Like when you're 18, you've gone through things, but you're at the beginning of your life. When you're like in your like late 30s, early 40s, you're not in the middle of your life. You're not in midlife, but you've got so much other things that have happened since then that it's hard to have that same confidence because you see all the little like you know the scars, or the stretch marks, or the boobs not sitting the right way, and you see all that kind of stuff, and it affects you on some level. It has to, because we live in a society that demands that it affects you. So to me, this makes sense.
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. That was a
So
little
no,
rant.
that's okay. I need to get going.
Yeah, I know, I can hear.
I would love to keep chatting, but I'm hearing like
Yeah.
some screams downstairs, and I kind of
Hmm.
told my husband it'd be an hour, and it's been an hour and 40.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's I don't care. It's been fun for me.
Yeah, I know, but pass along the sorry to him. 'Cause
Yeah, I will.
sometimes it's short, sometimes it's not. It depends on what's being discussed. So, but I'm glad that you're finding romances that add in. You know what I mean? Like they make you feel seen. Because
Yeah.
I think you should feel seen in your romances that you're
Yeah,
reading. I think you should
exactly.
feel like you belong somewhere. Even when you physically don't feel like you do, you feel like you should belong somewhere. Even if that's in a fictional world, but it's not fictional to you because it still does something for you. It's like a little snow globe.
Yeah. That's ultimately why we read, though, right? Like,
Mhm.
learn, feel connected.
Yeah, and grow.
Yeah.
Even like I grow a lot by reading romances, depending on the subgenre and everything else. It makes you happy. It makes you smile. It makes you sad. It makes you find things that maybe you didn't think that you had going on in your head, and you're like, oh my god, like me finding out I was ADHD because of a Alyssa Cole book. Oh right, that's a thing.
Huh.
Hot dang, right? Like that's what romances should do for you. You should feel like you belong. That's the whole point of it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for talking to me.
You're welcome.
This was
Okay,
fun.
so where can people find you?
Where can they find me? So I'm on Twitter at the Edifying Word, and I have my website is also it's www.theedifyingword.com. So there's my editing services and then the blog where I mostly blog about books. I don't blog about editing because that's not fun for me.
Yeah, no.
So I'm a bad content marketer. I started with the blog first just to talk about books that I liked or what they made me think about. And eventually kind of it just morphed and combined.
Well, sometimes it's easier to have one space than like three, so
Yeah.
I get it. I have a whole other blog I keep forgetting about. I'm like, oh right, I have a whole blog I have that I forget about. I get it. Well, it's been very nice talking with you.
You too. Bye.
Bye. So what did you guys think? I think Kristin did an amazing job, and I'm really glad she came on the show. I had a blast, and I know it may not always sound like I do when I take these books apart, but I actually do enjoy them for the most part. Okay, Secret Christmas Twins was a story altogether, but in general, I have fun with these books, okay? So I want to just make that very clear now that you guys have listened, and I don't want to make that feel like I'm dogging something because I'm not. Sometimes I just have very strong opinions, and I have not learned how to filter them out for myself. So you guys get them too. This is just kind of how I work. And of course, like I mentioned in the beginning of the episode, you can find me at Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at Damsels Podcast. You can also find me at Patreon at damselspodcast.com. And I keep forgetting to tell y'all, I actually do have content there. I keep forgetting to tell you what I have. So if you are a patron, you get early release most of the time. Sometimes we run it kind of low, but you guys usually get, early release if you have the $2 a month. For the first one, like for the dollar one, you get your name said aloud, and so I kind of give you a little bit of that. And then bonus content kind of ranges from a whole bunch of stuff, including, there are some videos, like there's an unboxing I did with my body bookworms that will not be public. It's just for that because I think it's kind of a topic that I want to keep into my patron side because, I don't want to get banned from any social media platform otherwise. You've also got a ton of reviews. Like Sven and I especially just do reviews all the time. So if you enjoy listening to us, I highly recommend it. And of course, there's other kind of little reviews. And I also do some mini reviews on Instagram. I've done 3 or 4 of them, and they're really interesting, I think, because sometimes there are stories that I want to talk about, but I don't really want to, I don't have a full, episodes worth of content, but I felt like, it was worth talking about. I also have mini reviews and long reviews on Patreon. I'm mentioning those because they're not, what you see on Patreon is nothing that will ever be outside of Patreon. That's exclusively that. Now, on to the big thing. So I promised you something new. And I've been thinking about this for a while. A way of being interactive and creating something fun and for you guys to join in. You listen to me all the time. You listen to me and my guests. And I know that, I talk a lot, but I want to hear what you guys are doing, which is exactly why we had that whole, what's your favorite 2020 book, right? I want to hear what you guys are reading, what you're communicating with. So, I decided to create a reading challenge for 2021. Now, I should mention that this challenge is actually based on what I was going to be doing. So if you follow along, you're literally going to follow along about things that I know that I did wrong last year, Well, not wrong, but I wasn't paying as close of attention to something as I should have. So I've hashtagged it challenging damsels because I didn't want to confuse myself with Tessa Dare because she's got the Society of Damsels and I didn't want to take that away because she's had that way longer. I just have deconstructing damsels and had to do something fun with it. And I didn't want to do deconstructing because that's a long word. So there are 12. Well, kind of. And I'll explain that in a minute. You can find more of this information at damselspodcast.com and it'll be under an extras tab and it will say Challenging Damsels 2021, so that way if we do this again next year, it's just easy to kind of roll it out. So, here are the 12 prompts that I have come up with. Backlist no more. I mean, we all have a backlist that's forever, right? And then I have debuting YA author. And this actually comes because Bex, who will be on this in a little while, Potato Lady Reviews, where she reviews podcasts, which is kind of awesome, is able to do this. And so I was like, all right, she likes YA. I was looking into doing YA. In fact, we're going to cover a YA at some point in the next couple months or so. I'm letting her get settled on her end on that too. So why not? And like a YA author, new books come out all the time, and I want to highlight maybe people who need that boost. So it has to be debuting is in 2021. And on the website with all this information, I actually have a bunch of ideas and suggestions and links for you guys to get access to them. There's a way of knowing who's debuting and who's not and stuff like that. Again, I'm resource happy because it's me. Make it modern, which is my version of contemporary. I realized I don't read that much contemporary because historical is my fallback. It's my safe space when I read right now. And other than paranormal contemporary, I should say, I'm trying to build a bigger view of what's working within our genre and how things have progressed since the last time I read a whole bunch of contemporary, which was usually Harlequins, which I love, by the way. Hence, Category Corner on my Patreon. But I wanted to expand that because there's so many new authors, so many available ways of reading, and I will admit it probably will not be a billionaire or a mafia book. Those just don't really hit a button for me, but there are so many more other options along the way. And then the next one is Not Another Regency. Not Another Regency is literally like any other time frame that's historical. So, you've got Jenny Lin who does the Tang Dynasty. Bev Jenkins does the Old West. There's a lot of options that we can discuss. And they're available. Again, on the website, a whole list. I seriously did a lot of research for you guys on this one. And then there's Siblings, a series. Now, this is the one that's not a single prompt because I kind of want to read a series of, something. And I realized that I start series, but I never finish them. And I wanted to narrow it down a little bit more to Siblings because I think that siblings have a very interesting dynamic. Back when I started first reading romance, like Joe Beverly's Mallorean series was very influential for me because I'd never really seen that kind of a sibling series outside of Nora Roberts. So it was totally cool to me. And I have again a list of those, and sometimes they can be 3 or 4, and sometimes the book's only 150 to maybe 175 pages. So it's more of a novella meets book. But anyway, so I definitely think that should be easy enough. And then I have Own Voices. So I did Own Voices on purpose. There are so many options out there for Own Voices, and we read all the time in romance. And this one is specific to me because after reading the book with Becky last year, Beckles, on, by Tony Anderson, I was thinking, I was looking for Own Voices and I found some. So I would like to continue that. So I'm going to put that in my list and I'm going to read it. I actually had novella down, but it's kind of hard to find novella short stories unless you get an anthology, and sometimes anthologies are not always available, and it just kind of broadens it up a little bit. And then you have Comfort Zone Begone. Remember that whole historical comment I made? Yeah, basically that. I don't want to do that. Absolutely not. Wrong, wrong, wrong. So, I have decided to go beyond that. And for me, that's actually reading more dark romance, something that I don't think I'm going to like. I'll be honest, but I'm willing to try because it seems silly to write something off without working on it, right? Like there are options there. So I'm thinking about those kind of things. And then there's backstage hookup, and that sounds like it's Rockstar, and it can be. But mostly what I'm talking about is I'm talking about books where, you've got like the production assistants, you know, falling in love and making out with one of the makeup artists, or, the stage manager and an understudy, or, someone that's not literally in the bright lights. So, kind of like, not like spoiler alert, I love the book, but what I mean is like I don't want the stars to be center. That's my preference. I mean, you guys can interpret it any way you want, but for me, that's what I was looking for because Adele Buck, who will be in the episode next month, she has one coming out. It's her debut, and it's about the theater world, and like we books like Lucy Parker, and they have all those books, but it's usually about stars or whatever. But she's got a few in there that are not, and so I think it's really important to showcase that and note it, and not forget the behind the scenes people. And it doesn't have to be the theater world, guys. It doesn't have to be like music. I mean, it can be like the people that clean up, like a janitor at the hospital falling in love with, I don't know, a phlebotomist. But you know what I mean? Like there are options there. And I'd really like to see more of that kind of behind the scenes stuff. And then there is positive disability representation. Hi. That one was basically for me. Literally for me. Because, you know, I have ADHD, I have anxiety, I have all of those mental, I call it misfirings because sometimes they start going in the wrong direction and they can kind of really make my life very difficult, especially when they hit the depression button and also diabetes. But I want to see people be strong and solid and know themselves and be aware of it. And so, and I don't want it to be like inspiration porn. I hate that kind of crap. I want something a little bit more than that. And I want to kind of like be something in the happy side. So I made sure to put something up. And again, I have some recs in the website. And then there's Black Love. Now, I picked Black Love in part because I realized I didn't actually read it, or rather, I didn't talk about a lot of relationships between characters that were black. And there's been some discussion on Twitter that I'm not going to get into, but basically, I want to talk about things that are gooey and happy and not tragedy porn and, rising above all the crap they have to. I don't want to write about that. And I don't want to read about that, right? So I want something happy, and there are so many options out there. Like, that's not to say people can't be going through things, but I don't want to be their defining feature as if it's the only thing that's motivating them, right? Because characters should be more complex and complicated, and I want to see some more of that. And there's so many authors that put that out now that it's silly to ignore it, basically. And silly for me, I should say. Silly for me not to cover it in this. And I think that that's just, not that I don't read it, but it's bad that I don't really necessarily talk about it. I have several coming up this year, however, already recorded, just for clarify. So I'm on the way, but I'm not counting those because I read those last year. This is this year. And there's so many really great options. And Reese Ryan on Twitter does a really good job of talking about that a lot. So I just wanted to point that out. And then there's Time for a Holiday. And this is straight just being funny and loud and, going on vacation. Like, what happens when you go on vacation and you meet the love of your life, but you're going to leave in like 2 weeks, right? So, how is this relationship going to work? What's going on? How do we get a happily ever after that? Or, who knows? Maybe it's World Pancake Day or National Hot Tea Day or something, and you meet someone at the bakery and they're closing, but you're like, oh no, I need this. And so they go in and make you something because you look so sad and lonely, and that's the kind of stories I want to read. Like, not you, but like you as in the character world. So I'm looking for that kind of stuff. I'm looking for some lighthearted stuff. Not everything has to be serious. Because I started to read One Christmas Story last year and I loved it, but it was so dark I just couldn't finish it because it was a little too personal. And I was like, I need something random. I mean, hell, why not have like, you know, St. Patrick's Day and have like I I don't know. I'm sure there's leprechaun porn out there somewhere. Make what you want of that. And then the final one is non-binary or trans author. And this one is a little personal, and I picked it because I need to read the book that I got. So last year when I was looking for diabetes representation, Corey Alexander sent me an arc, and I never got a chance to read it before they passed, Zane West. And I felt bad about that. I felt like, I'd planned to do something and I didn't do it in time, and in the end I lost the chance to speak with the author about what was going on. And that felt really wrong and not great. So I wanted to go ahead and add something to that. So I made sure to write that down. I have quite a few lists with some books in there. I try to put books in all the ideas section for you guys so you can kind of use it as a starting point. Like, it's not to be an end all be all, but maybe you can find something along the way from the same author in a different book. Whatever. It's all about that kind of stuff. It's all about giving you options. And so it's always been my it's always been my way to give you as many options as possible. And that's challenging damsels. And I have a thing on Instagram that people can use if they want. And make sure to tag on Twitter and in Instagram, and make sure to actually use the hashtag and tag me, damsels podcast, because I'm simple that way. I'm very easygoing that way. Simplistic is my way. I wanted to see what you guys are doing. And in that same vein, I was talking to Kerry, and Kerry actually suggested a Facebook group. I know, I have a lot of issues with Facebook, but I don't know if I could handle moderating a Discord server, like, for real. And I don't want to give that over to my husband, because Sven does all the editing on this podcast, and I don't want to make his life more difficult. So it was a Facebook group because I can handle that. It's been like almost 20 years since I modded, so give me a little grace if you join. But basically what I want to do is I want people to, talk about what they're reading within it. Like, you're reading a book about, say, Bev Jenkins, and you hear news, about something going on with the production of one of her shows. Cool. That relates because the shows are based on the books. It's a matter of like letting you kind of converse and have conversations and see what else is out there that you may have missed. And I'd like to, at the end of the year, I've got a Google form, but I think I'm also going to try and have a spreadsheet somehow, maybe, where everyone can write down what they're reading and stuff, so there's a little bit more consistency, and that way, I can keep up with what's going on, and I can see what was most popular and wasn't, and give you guys the data, which will be due like December 29th. It's January 15th. You got time. I did that on purpose. I didn't want to make a long one. I enjoy these kind of things. Like, this year I decided to start reading the Heaving Bosoms Reading Embrace, and this didn't come out of that. This actually just, like I said, came out of my list. But the idea is just to kind of do that fun idea. I hope you guys join me. I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait to launch it. I'm really freaking worried about launching it, and scared and anxious and nervous. But I want to talk to you guys more. And not just about like the book I've been reading or what's going on in the world, because we know the world is burning like every 2 seconds, so that's not a change there. But I want to talk about some things fun, And, there's a lot of leeway within the Facebook group. Just don't be a dickhead. Don't be disrespectful. Don't be racist, homophobic, xenophobic. Like, don't be the phobics and you'll be fine. Flat out. I'm truly trying to make this as comfortable as I can. And this episode has been going on for a really long time now, so I'm going to stop it, because it's been roughly like an hour and a half, I think, by the time he's done editing this. A little bit more, a little bit less. That's a lot of listening. So, especially since I've been talking like on half of this by myself, and it's better when I have a guest, I know. So, I'm going to go now. I again want to thank Kristin at the Edifying Word for coming on here and talking about Starla and Sawyer. I will have all her links in the comments below, in the show notes, and I will also have the links to the website and any information that you may need. You know, I'll link to my Instagram because that's where the other versions will be. There's also, by the way, there's also a version on the website too. So I've given you, like, you can just download that one because it's the same copy as what I'm gonna be using on Instagram in case you need an extra copy or in case something happens to yours, or I don't know, whatever. It's up to you. Have a good time, guys. Like, just have a good time living life. Sometimes life can be wonky, really, really wonky, but sometimes it can be really, really good. And we're going to hope for really, really good this year because last year sucked. And I want to put something more positive in the world this year. We all kind of need it. Thanks, guys. Until next time. Bye.